The most common mistakes we see, predictable books. I'm Karen Beery with Right Now Editing, where we turn good manuscripts into great books.
And I'm Peg Thomas, multi-award winning author and editor, and we are two editors for 5 minutes.
So I'm going to
Set the
preface
timer this time,
this.
Karen.
We're going to preface this before I start the timer. We actually had a good little debate going on beforehand because Peg wanted to title this No Plot Twist. But as a not necessarily plot first writer, I don't strive for plot twists. But
She
we
gets
did
there. She
settle
just doesn't know it. She
We
gets there.
did settle on predictability. So here, we're going to come at this from two different angles. Timer starts now, Peg.
Okay, my angle is the plot
Yes.
twist is what keeps your story from being what we call in the industry predictable. Okay. There's nothing worse than getting 20% in the story and having it all figured out. And then you get to the end and find out you were right. Because that's boring, right? You don't want to figure it out 20% in. And where this really can be a problem is in romance. Because let's face it, romance, we all know the ending. The guy gets the girl gets the guy. That's the whole idea of a romance. But something has to happen in there that holds the reader's attention so that the story isn't boring, so that you're throwing the reader red herrings, you're throwing the reader clues that maybe don't lead to anywhere, along with clues that do lead to somewhere. And so you're keeping them so they don't really know. One of my favorites in romance is like a third character, a secondary character, and you don't really know if it's a good guy or a bad guy or a good girl or a bad girl. It just kind of keeps everybody on the edge. Is that person going to horn in on what's supposed to be going? What's going on here? So anything like that, which that goes over to Karen's side of maybe being more touchy feely, but it's still a plot twist because you're setting it up where that could be something that happens and then it doesn't. So it's, or it does. Maybe the one you don't know about does wind up being the hero or the heroine. Anyway, there needs to be something that sets your story aside so that your story isn't boring, so that your story has something happening other than just interaction between two characters that becomes mundane. Does that make sense?
It does.
Good.
But when I sit down and I try to think of plot twists, I get very anxious and I can never think of them. Because then I'm thinking of plot first, and I don't think in those terms. So when you tell me write a plot twist, I'm going to start to panic and I'll probably stop writing the story. So the way that I approach this, and because I do write and edit a lot in romance, romance is my favorite genre. Uh, yes, we already know how the plot is going to go. We know that the boy and girl are going to meet very early. We know that there's going to be some conflict, and we know by the end they're going to come together. So, how do you make that interesting? My approach is the characters. So, go back to last week if you missed it. And how do you keep your characters in character? Stick to their personalities. So, this is what's really going to make your story different because Peg and I could both sit down. We could have the same plot and we could even have the same characters. And I could say, okay, we're going to have a blacksmith and a baker. Write the story. It's a romance. Go. Well, first of all, she writes historical, so automatically her blacksmith is probably going to be the guy. I could make the blacksmith the female. Just that twist on the everyday is going to add something different to the story. But also Peg's experiences, the way she views the world, and how whatever personalities she decides to give those characters are going to change the outcome of her story. It will look completely different than mine. You could give us a whole page of the same parameters, and we will have two completely different stories based on how we decide to lay it out. She's going to do plot first, but then very much so the personalities of the characters. It's very unlikely that Peg and I are going to pick the exact two same personalities for our main characters. So when you really know what your characters are like, they are going to behave in different ways. And you
And
do
when
want
you
to.
really and when you really know what your characters are like, you know what to throw in their way
Yes.
to send them off kilter. And that thing you throw in their way to send them off kilter is your plot twist. Don't get
So
hung up on the word plot twist, okay?
exactly. Now, so if I approached this saying I need to find the plot twist, I'm going to panic. But if I approach this as let me build my characters and how can I mess up my character's life, that's the plot twist.
Yes.
So I hope this helps with the same issue, two different perspectives. Any final thoughts, Peg?
No, I think we covered it very well from the two different. I use the term plot twist. You don't like that? That's a trigger for you to go. "Ooh." And I have my own triggers that I don't like to deal with. Everybody does, but it's just understanding that it's whatever throws your character off kilter. It's whatever makes your story different than everybody else's story because you've got this twist, you've got this change, you've got this drama, whatever you want to call it. But you need it. Your story needs it.
You
Your
do.
reader needs it.
And that's all the time we have for today. Stop back next week. We're done with our most common mistakes. We'll come up with a different topic for then. Until then, I'm Karen Beery.
And I'm Peg Thomas. We'll see you next time.
Bye.